Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have so much fun today because we're going to be talking about some things that are near and dear to my heart. And I love talking about how to start a business. And for those of you who have already started your business, trust me, the information we're going to be talking about is still very valuable to you. That's what I love about this, is you could have been in business for 20 years and the information is still great information. So please join me in welcoming Jon Castrina to our program today. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, it's great to be on the podcast, Deb.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Jon Castrina is a serial entrepreneur, having started more than 20 companies over the last 20 years, and he still seeks to launch a new venture annually. He is an investor, teacher, and highly sought after speaker who communicates with humor and a bluntness that engages and captures his audience. He is the author of 8 Unbreakable Rules for Business Startup Success, The Greatest Entrepreneur in the World, and World's Greatest Business Plan. So again, Jon, welcome.
Well, again, we're glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Excited to help your audience if I can.
Perfect. Well, and the one thing that I didn't mention is you also have a podcast called The 10-Minute Entrepreneur, which has great information. So, we really are going to have a good time. Now, you have had some challenges in life, some great things that have happened. I mean, holy schmoly, 20 companies that you have started and all sorts of things. But tell us how it is that you got to where you are today and how you discovered that what you're doing now is truly your passion in life, for at least now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was going the normal route that, got a college education. I went to college on athletic scholarship, got out of college, had my dream job in the DC area for a nonprofit, new house, married, new baby, had literally the
right.
Norman
You had the
Rockwell.
dream.
Yeah, I had the Norman Rockwell going, and then got let go pretty much overnight because there was a change in leadership. And I kind of knew then that I would never be financially dependent on a job. I would always have something either on the side and or my own thing just in general. So my paradigm pretty much shifted. I was literally one class away from a master's degree, and then once that happened, I decided that I was going to do something that I had more control. I actually went into selling life insurance, which was actually really good money. If you can sell, you can make a lot of money there. And we used to have staff meetings on Mondays, and it's the first time I saw really expensive cars. Like that's the first time I was around a lot of extremely successful people financially. And this is almost 30 years ago. And I thought to myself, it would be so neat if we could get our cars clean while we were in these meetings. Like we're going to go out and sell. This is before, there was a car wash every block.
Right.
And so I started Waxmaster Mobile Detailing, and all I did was set it up. Never cleaned a car in my life, just created the name, the brand, the toll-free number. I remember 888 We Detail, which was 933.
Perfect. Oh yeah.
Yeah. 933-3824. Tagline was America's Choice in Mobile Detailing. Needless to say, I made $35,000 passive income that year.
Wow.
And it took me about 2 hours a week of work, just coordinating a couple things with the people who answered the phone and scheduled the work to be done. I knew then that I was kind of on to something that one is that it killed a lot of the big myths. The big myth, and I call it an entrepreneur's mistress, is passion. Passion you got to be careful. Because just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean it's a good business idea.
Right.
I would say, example, Richard Branson's very passionate about yachting, but he doesn't have a yachting business that I can find. So you can pay for your passion. So you just kind of, you need to be passionate about what you're doing, maybe within the business, which is what I like. I love the startup, the branding and all that. but my point is the actual industry is irrelevant to me because again, I don't clean cars, but I saw a need. And so that's where I kind of got the aha that, okay, you just need to find a need. You need to solve a problem and there's a business there. And that if you structure it correctly, you don't have to be trapped in this business working 100 hours a week. I started every one of my businesses with me kind of working my way out of it. And so again, making 35,000 of passive income that year, I knew that I had something, and I just kind of have rinsed and repeated for the last, almost 30 years.
I love it. Yeah. And I love, and you talk about it in your book, Hold the Book Up, Be Vanna.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. Lots of books, but the 8 Unbreakable Rules, there we go.
Right. And so I read it last night. It's a great book. And as I mentioned, even if you've been in business for years, there are still so many tips in there, because I think many times we skip things, or we think, it's not really important, all those various things. So that's where I always love talking about this, because there are so many things that, always pertain. And you mentioned passion. And I think that is definitely one of the bugaboos with starting your own business. We're all told, you have to be passionate about it. If you love it, it will never be work.
Yeah, that's the biggest crock of crap. Yeah. Start a business that doesn't make money and see how that passion turns to a bitter pill.
Right. Well, and it might be something that you love doing, but there's so many things that go along with a business, that you're probably not going to be wild about. You might not like the marketing. You might not like the invoicing, the sales, all of those various things. So then, of course, what happens many times is you lose your passion for your passion. And so I love that it's, what your concept is that you do what you do to be able to do your passions.
Exactly. I mean, my successful businesses pays for every passion I have. I can play golf courses anywhere in the world. I can give money to any amount of charities I want to give money to. I've never missed a school event. I'm home at 5:30 for dinner every single night. The things that are important to me, entrepreneurship has definitely provided.
Right. And probably, if we had to say the passion that you have is that entrepreneurship. It's not the actual business itself, because that's like, as you said, they come, they go. But yeah, so I love that. And I think that really is what so many people get caught up in, is they have to be loving what they do. And then when they don't, they think they're a failure.
Yeah. And I always say, listen, I live really well, but I have a dog. My dog craps. I still got to pick it up. In other words, there is crap in everything we do. There are certain things that we just do because it's a part of life. Now, what I've learned is the more successful you get, how much of it you do less. So there was a time when probably 80% of what I did, I didn't want to do. But it was the heavy lift getting it started the first 2 years. Now it's more like 28, I do 80% of what I do, I love to do. 20% of what I do, I don't really like to do. And if I could delegate, I would, but I can get it done faster. My phone call is more powerful. So there's no reason for me to delegate it, because it would take somebody, a lot longer to accomplish what I can make one phone call because of who I am. I can get it done.
Right.
That's the only thing that switches, and I think in the first 2 to 5 years, you're going to do some heavy sledding at times, but the payoff is pretty. I tell people, the Forbes 400 list, every single person on it's an entrepreneur and or an heir to an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah.
All
and a lot of them really aren't the heirs. I mean, you mentioned in the book that many people are, they started from nothing and 75% built these businesses.
Of wealth is first generation wealth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the heirs, in many cases, do something different. They take that wealth and they go do what their passion is.
Yeah. So you can, exactly. So I just think entrepreneurship is the one thing that, we could get into whether we all start at a level playing field, and that could be debated here or there. All I know in the United States is I can point to every gender, every race, and I could show you a wealthy person.
Right.
So
definitely.
It really does not discriminate. It rewards great ideas and effort.
Right. And what I love about talking about this right now is, as we're recording it, we're still in this stupid pandemic. Those who said it was going to last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
But what has happened is I think we've definitely had a shift. And the longer this goes on, obviously, the more things shift. We unfortunately had a lot of people that lost their jobs. Either they were furloughed and or downsized, all these various things. They're working from home, and I think what's happening is many people, even if they still have a full-time job, are thinking, is this really what I want to be doing? Maybe I should start my own business. I think many people are starting a second business. They need to earn some extra money. They've got extra time. Holy schmoly, you remove all of our commute times and we've got quite a bit of free time right there. So that's what is so important about what you talk about in your book, because it does walk people through the steps. And it's a great book because it's short, it's sweet, it tells you why you should do this in very easy to understand terms. And I love that you say you really don't have to have these long, drawn out 3-inch binder business plans.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. No, most entrepreneurs have very short attention spans
Right.
to start with. So giving us a 300-page dissertation to do is probably.
Well, or we do them and we might have a marketing plan. We might have this, we might have that. And then it sits on the bookshelf behind us and gathers dust.
Yeah, that's why I always say your business plan needs to be an active business plan. It's always evolving. It's
Right.
pivoting constantly. And it may look completely different 2 years from now from what you originally thought it would be.
Right. Well, let's go through kind of one by one the 8 unbreakable rules and really go into them in detail. Because as I said, is great information for anybody. And so let's just kind of start, obviously, at the beginning. You have to be qualified. I mean, how many people think, oh, I could do this, but they really can't. So tell us a little bit more about why, how you even figure out if this is something you should be doing.
Yeah, I think for one is that I bet on people, not ideas. I get a DM literally every 45 minutes in relation to somebody pitching me an idea.
Right.
And so just for one, let's just alleviate the value of an idea. The person is, if you become an entrepreneur and that you develop the qualities of a successful entrepreneur, whether it's your first business or your second business, you're going to hit gold. One of them will work. So I tell people first, why do you want to be an entrepreneur in the first place? My daughter's a school teacher. She would be an awful entrepreneur, in fairness. Right. She likes structure. She's oblivious to money. So she's perfect at what she's doing. My wife's a nurse, same thing.
Right.
My wife couldn't tell you what's in our checking account for the last 20 years. Could care less. Right. So find out why you want to do it, because I think your why has to motivate you and it has to fit. Typically entrepreneurs, they are financially motivated. They want to control their future. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be able to chase different things. They don't, it's a different breed. They're a little more, they don't mind risk. Now we don't take crazy risk. I think that's one of the,
right.
One of the
you talk about that a lot,
there.
Don't be betting your house on this, folks.
Yeah, you don't. But there are qualities that great entrepreneurs have. Example, you have to be able to relentlessly pursue one thing for a sustained period of time. Where if I give you a great idea and then next month you have another idea, and next month you have another idea, and we know people like this. They're like chasing rabbits. Right. So it's that quality of being able to be able to have sustained focus on one thing and relentlessly pursue it, where you don't get distracted and you overcome things like that. Right. You typically have great communication skills. Why? Because you got to interview people. You got to bring on contractors, vendors. You got to negotiate. You're working with banks. You're getting financing, whatever, startup money, whatever the case may be. Somebody with good communication skills, good sales skills, the ability to build a team. I'm just going through a few, and I'm just saying to a person is that do two things. Number one is know why you want to be an entrepreneur to start with, because it has to motivate you during the initial heavy lift.
Right. And it can't be because there was nothing else. That's the worst reason.
I think the worst time to start a business is because you got let go from a job. I really do, because you're typically wounded at that point. You're financially wounded and your ego is wounded. And I just don't think you're at your healthiest point. I tell people, get a job and get a business and do it at the same time.
Right. Your job pays the bills, and maybe that's working at, Walmart or whatever.
It doesn't matter where it is. I did that. In other words, I knew I wanted to start a business, but I went and sold insurance. And so it can work that way. But again, know why you want to be an entrepreneur. It has to motivate you. It has to be so motivating to you. Like, I always had something I was looking at every day. It was either I had laminated car that I wanted, a house I wanted, flexibility. Like, I wanted to be able to do what I want during the day. I had all these motivators. So when things were crappy, I knew why I was in this fight. And so, number one, be a great entrepreneur. You know why you want to be an entrepreneur, and be a great entrepreneur. Develop the qualities that your highly successful people have, because again, if you procrastinate, you're probably not going to do well.
Right.
If you lack leadership, you're going to have you're going to have limits there. There's a variety of things. If you can't stay focused, you can keep going down the line. If you're lazy, if the second an obstacle comes up, you can't handle stress, you get paralyzed. I mean, all these things would prevent you, I believe, from being an entrepreneur or a successful one. So let's work on that, number one.
Right. And one of the things you mentioned in your book is, and this is obviously a little bit further down the road when you've maybe been doing this, well, maybe it is at the very first. When you get an idea, when you yourself get an idea for a new business, you kind of noodle on it for 60 days.
Absolutely. They all sound great in my head.
Right.
But I like to marinate on them a little bit. I like to expose them to criticism, critiquing. I want to vet an idea. So again, they all sound good the first week.
Right. And that's when we're really passionate about it. We think about it. We've seen something that needs fixed, or, something like that. And we're like, oh, we can be the person to fix it. But then 2 weeks later, 4 weeks later, it's like, that might not have been the best idea in the world.
Yeah. I write them down in my journal, and I put them at the back of my journal when I write an idea down, and I'll go back and look at it like a week from now, and it's not that quite as good. But that's why the second rule was you really need to qualify your ideas, because we tend to think all our ideas are winners, and they may be a winner, but they may not be a winner in your area. There may be too much competition in your area. It may be a company that's really hard to staff in your area. It may be something that people don't pay a great deal of. Perfect example. I got a call. You're from Georgia. So our business is in Charlottesville, and I own really a home service conglomerate. And one of the things she wanted done, we kind of gave her a price for, and she said, well, my sister got it done in Georgia for such and such. And it was like a third of what you would pay.
Right.
So I would not have that business in Georgia. There ain't enough margin, there ain't enough meat on the bone to interest me. And I told her, I said, we wouldn't start our vehicle up for what your sister paid.
Right.
That's what my staff said.
And it's probably because there's more of those companies here, there's a variety of reasons for it.
Yeah. And it's just, in every business, there's businesses in Georgia that do better there than they would in a small town, because you need more, more people there. So I just tell people, you got to qualify your idea. You got to vet it. You got to test it. You got to beta test it. You got to make sure the marketplace wants what you're offering, because that's the hardest thing to fix. Like in all the things in business to fix, the hardest thing to fix is no interest in what you're offering.
Right.
You can darn near fix everything else. It's hard to fix a bad idea defined as nobody wants it.
Right. And we've all seen examples of that, where companies have done things, and I probably one of the best ones would be Google Plus.
Yeah.
That was their third attempt at having their own social media network, because they saw the success of Facebook, and they thought, well, we're Google. We should be able to do this. We can pour a ton of money into it. We can all do all these things. And of course, everybody went, yeah, but we're already on Facebook. And so it was a great idea, but like you said, nobody wanted it.
Yeah. And it'd be hard to transition people from Amazon right now. It's so in your, it'd be, what I always say is that they're not perfect, but I I can't find much they could change.
Right. Right.
I mean, they've got it pretty well down.
Yeah, I mean, the companies that will compete are only the people that have the money, the Walmarts of the world.
Well, the perfect example, look at Microsoft did Bing.
Mm-hmm.
They had endless money. It was the most wealthiest
Mm-hmm.
company in the world at the time, and it has been for a great deal, but they never made a dent.
Right.
In the SEO and search engines and all that.
Yeah. And we're just trained. I mean, when Google has become the noun, the verb, the adjective, all of those things, that's and so it's a great idea, but there was no market for it. And other examples would be, restaurants, things like that, where you're thinking, well, hey, this would be a great restaurant. Well, might not be in a good area for a restaurant, or there might already be 20 restaurants there.
Yeah, I always say, why it's so simple question, but why would somebody buy from you as opposed to what's out there?
Right.
I mean, your value proposition has to be strong. It has to differentiate, like when Domino's did so well, because pizzas, there was pizza shops everywhere, but they did the delivery.
Yeah, the 30-minute delivery guarantee. Right.
And you can just an example of in the pizza industry, how you can do it. Totally how three people can make a ton of money, or actually four. Okay. Whatchamacallit? Little Caesars did pickup.
Right.
They didn't even try the delivery.
Right. You're on your way home, you pick up the pizza.
You get two pizzas basically for the cost of, two pieces for the cost of one. That was their value proposition. Worked incredible. The guy was able to buy the Detroit Tigers baseball team. So did okay. Then you had Domino's did the delivery. Then Pizza Hut really had the sit down, eat pizza. And they evidently still sell more pizzas than anybody. And then you come back in, and then Papa John's comes with better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. They differentiated themselves away from Domino's, saying we just offer a better tasting pizza.
Right. Right.
At the end of the day, we can do what they're doing because the 30 minutes or less was done. So we're just going to give you a better pizza. The point is, you got to differentiate yourself with something so strong that you can grab a good bit of the marketplace.
Right. And it's been interesting to see, it's because of the pandemic, how some businesses have pivoted, and things like that. I mean, like, who would have thought 8 months ago that making masks would be a big business? Now, clearly, that's a very short-term type of thing. And so somebody who's thinking, 5 years from now, we're still going to be doing this. Heaven help us if they are, but it's not going to be a long-term thing. So, you make your money and you go on to something else. But, then the restaurants, again, another great example, if you were able to do takeout and delivery, even if you had always been a sit-down restaurant, then you may have survived all of this.
A perfect example of that is we have a restaurant, and it's a national franchise. We may have it, everywhere, but Bonefish, which is Outback's seafood version. Well, I'm giving them free advertising. They have a family bundle. It's basically $30, feeds between 4 and 5 people with a pretty darn good meal. I mean, grilled chicken, salad.
Oh, and Bonefish is good.
Mashed potatoes, bread, and a dessert. It's $30.
Wow.
I have eaten more Bonefish in the last year than whenever we would go. It's 2 miles from my house, and I probably would go there twice a year to eat sit down.
Right.
We've probably ordered it 15 times in the last year.
Yep.
Every other week, it's one of our staples because somebody can, you can grab it on the way home. And my point is, if more restaurants created family meals delivered, forget that. Grubhub is much more the Chinese or something like that, but where you can offer, like, every week your menu changes.
Right.
Quality family meals, meatloaf, vegetable, blah, blah, stuff that you typically wouldn't get.
Right.
Baked chicken, because it's maybe more healthy. I'm not in the restaurant industry, but I know families would do that in a second because we have a dollar figure and we have a time in our head.
Right. Yeah. And we're getting used to doing that and liking it, because we're home in our sweats. Yeah. We're not having to get dressed up to go to the restaurant. We're not spending that time to do it. We're able to watch TV. Everybody's still on their phones, all of those things. And, and mom or whoever does the cooking is like, hey, this is cool. We just microwaved it.
We have a dollar figure in our house. Like, okay, it ranges between 40 realistically, if we can go $40 to $60, if it's a Friday or Saturday night, 60 to 75, we're fine with. We have a dollar figure that we are happy to get it delivered, Grubhub, or pick up. And we've probably done more of that. So I think the restaurant industry just needs a change a little bit. At the end of the day, the problem is still the same. People don't have enough time. They would like to have a nutritious meal for their family in a fast amount of time with very little cleanup. So that hasn't changed.
Right. It's just amplified.
It has,
you know, and as I said, we're getting used to it. You know, the pandemic is going to come and go, and we're still probably going to be doing things like this because it works perfect.
Yeah, so I could see like a restaurant having this massive email, like this clientele. And that, I really think I'm giving somebody a great idea. Where literally on Sundays, you send out the menu and then you sign up for the days of the week, like you can pre-order.
Yeah.
And you just run it like a delivery catering business where and not only that, you only make these 10 meals anyway.
Right.
So that day you're only making you only get a choice of like 3 things.
Right. So you're not, overdoing stuff that you're not going to sell. And
exactly. And you're pre-doing it. And I'm just bouncing an idea.
Right.
And it's, again, you got to vet your idea. You got to test your idea. Don't bring an idea to the marketplace not tested because you will get your feelings hurt.
And lose money, and
you'll absolutely lose money.
And that is the thing, that we all have to watch is, and you talk about this in the book, is how the business is initially financed. And there's a variety of ways to do it, but the big thing is, even if you think it's the greatest thing, if your friends have told you the greatest thing, all these various things, really watch how much you're going to spend. I mean, this is not the place that your kids' college fund goes into. It's certainly not, let's take out a second or third mortgage to pay for it. Yeah. All of those things.
I tell people, think like a tent. You're not building a dream home. This is a tent. This is designed to keep you from getting wet. That's about the extent of what you're building. This is your startup is just you want to put the least amount of money into it. You don't want to spend money on anything that doesn't accomplish 2 things in a startup. Does it keep you alive, keeps the doors open? Or number 2, does it acquire customers?
Right.
If it doesn't do those 2 things, you don't spend money on it.
No.
You got to think like a minimalist. And again, I always tell people, pup tent. Think like a pup tent, that little 2-person tent that's got like 2 poles. A little breeze can possibly bring it down, but if it does rain, you won't get, soaked. Right. That's your startup.
Yeah. And as the years go, then that's when you shore it up with a foundation, all of those various things.
Absolutely. Once you start exceeding your expenses, you start fortifying that business.
Right.
And you start putting money into infrastructure and systems and capital expenses and things of that nature. But the first 2 years, it's just amazing how people waste money on that extra computer or that, they offer benefits that sound great in theory. We all want to do everything for everybody, but I don't think it's a great idea in the first 2 years of a business necessarily. Money is oxygen in business. And, the only thing that's going to put you out of business is you run out of money. If you think about it, just keep it down to the most simplest.
Right.
A startup dies because it runs out of money. So what do you got to guard? Money. And what do you got to make? Money. So you start with a profitable idea and you guard cash.
Right. And speaking of the profitable ideas, one of the things that you talk about in the book is it doesn't necessarily have to be your own idea. There's franchises. You can model after a franchise, or you can buy into a franchise. Now, granted, that usually takes a pretty hefty chunk of money, or the other thing, buy an existing business, buy the business you work for. So talk to us a little bit more about that, because I think so many people think, I'm an entrepreneur, it must be my own idea.
Some people aren't very creative and don't come up with great ideas.
Right.
It's just
but they'd be great at doing it.
Exactly. All the things that I mentioned, you can do. In other words, you can buy an existing business. Think about it. If you're a valuable employee in an existing, sub 50 employee business, okay, you have the owner and there's no transition plan. Whatever, the kids did not step up to the plate. Okay. But this owner is, in his late 50s or she's in her late 50s. And there's no transition plan. That's a conversation worth having. Where maybe the buyout is simple. It's a you structure you buy it with no money. Basically, the way because I've done deals like that, the way you structure something like that is that the first 5 years is like, let's say this person, for conversation's sake, makes $100,000 a year. So what you would do is you do the first 5 years, they would get 75% of that. The next 5 years, they get 50% of that.
Right.
So that would be a 10-year buyout. Okay. And then maybe there's another 5 years at 25%. Basically, you're just buying out the company with pre-existing money. Now you're making a bet on yourself that your new energy and excitement is going to improve that profit. But a deal like that can work. I mean, I just told you how to buy a business without using a penny.
Right.
If you're reputable and the owner knows you're a reliable person, they know that you know how to run this company and you could do it. They just structured a 15-year annuity.
Right.
So you know, there's a lot of ways you can buy franchises. I modeled after a franchise, a business I started 21 years ago that makes me millions of dollars. And when I looked into franchises, they wanted you had to service too big of an area. I'm in in Central Virginia here near UVA, so we got about 60,000 population's about 60,000, I think is what it is. Well, they wanted you to service 250,000. That's always like the magic number, 250,000.
Wow.
You would have had to drive an hour and a half to service that, like in a circular direction. Nobody was going to do that for the type of business it was. Then you had to have an office, had to be 400 square feet. I'm like, why do you, I mean, I literally took a desk. It was inside like a hallway. So we had like a 10 by 10 office. The desk sat against the thing. Within 5 weeks into that business, we were getting like 54 phone calls a week. Within 3 years, we were making over $1 million. I'd be willing to bet, and I'm willing to say this on the air. I guarantee you that I own the most profitable handyman company in the United States of America.
Right.
I'll say that right now. If any handyman company in America gets close to $5 million, reach out to me and I'll apologize. But the point is, we started that, again, not a sexy idea. I just couldn't get anybody.
But there was definitely a need.
I owned a direct mail magazine in 23 cities, and I was trying to convert my dining room into a home office because we were having another child. So I couldn't get anybody to do it. It was like trying to find a one-eyed leprechaun. And I've lived in a nice neighborhood with like 900 homes, and I'm asking all my neighbors, and nobody can refer anybody.
Right.
So I started a handyman company, and literally it took off like crazy. That's the example of, again, I can't put together a 3-piece birdhouse. I don't know the difference between 2 screwdrivers at the time, but it was a profitable idea. I modeled a franchise. I modeled like 3 franchises because I was just going to buy a franchise. And I reached out to all the ones, and each of them had a massive gap that I thought was a real bad, like something that they could do better. One of them wanted you to have too big of an area. Another one, I didn't like their price structure. Their estimating was really weird. They were trying to do a national estimate, but it's like what you pay in Georgia is different than what you pay in Charlottesville. So I knew that model didn't work. Needless to say, we customized our model, and now millions of dollars later, our model's really, really well.
Right.
So
and
do a lot of things.
What I love is, again, it wasn't your personal passion to do the work.
Never.
But you could manage it.
Exactly. I knew how to brand it. I gave it a really good name, great tagline, the leader in home repairs and projects. We brand it. We run Super Bowl ads in our area. I mean, we take it to the next. I probably have 20 TV commercials in a vault. We rotate them. We're on like Dancing with the Stars. We do Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. We market like crazy, which was another thing I didn't like about a franchise, because they handle all the marketing typically.
And it is very specific. There's no deviation from what they're doing. And because that's their branding. I mean, they don't want you to mess with their brand.
Right. And you can't expand well. So example, you start a restaurant and it's a certain business. You find out everybody comes to you and wants seafood. So you want to start adding seafood on your menu. You just can't do that.
Right.
So that was another. So franchises fit certain people really, really well. Where you follow the dots well. You don't want, creativity is not your thing. So it's good for you. That's perfect. And it fits some people. The creative person who's always looking for profit streams, like a person like me, it didn't work out well. But there's a lot of ways to buy businesses. Again, you can buy a franchise, you can model a franchise, you can buy the business you work in, you can buy just a business that's for sale.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, through a sale, through a
And there's
business broker.
brokers. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do things like that. But you mentioned something that I immediately, the marketing person in me immediately went ding, 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 ding. And that was where you did your advertising. And you talk about this in your book because you have to figure out who your target market is. And we say this all the time on the program. It is not everyone.
Everybody.
And so for your advertising for handyman, you were advertising during programs that women watch.
Yeah, because they are the target.
Yep.
They're the ones who initiate the buying process. The husband and them may talk about it,
right? But it's the wife who goes, "Now we need to do this."
Absolutely, and that's and we found that the people that spent the most money were over 50 because they owned their house. They had more equity, and that's why we do Wheel of Fortune. We love Jeopardy. I mean, I spent a fortune when the Jeopardy thing was going on this past year. We love. One thing is the male audience who wants to on the big project. We do golf on Sundays. Goes
right.
Where the husband goes, yeah, I think you're right. We need that screen porch, or we need that. But knowing your target audience, but definitely we know that 8 out of 10 phone calls will be initiated by a female in our business.
Right. And then it's probably, once the work is taking place, she's the one who, I'm going to stereotype here, but she's one who's home, who's managing the project.
Absolutely. If we do estimates, 80% of the time it's speaking with the female.
Right.
And the husband and her may have worked out a budget. The only difference is they may have over at dinner said, okay, but I'd like to spend this and no more than this.
Right. And obviously figuring out who your audience is one of the biggest things, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see businesses make is they're just too broad. And, and it's understandable when you're starting a business because you want to serve as many people as you can because you equate that with making as much money as you can. But it comes back to the trying to shoot a fly with a shotgun. You might hit, you might not. It's much better to only be going after 10 people that are the right 10 people as opposed to 1,000 people where it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Again, the bottom. I heard somebody say, a niche will make you rich. So you need to have enough people to obviously pay the bills, but you got to have, if you look at fishing, you don't go in, how you fish in an ocean is different than how you fish in freshwater.
Yep.
So you got to kind of know, I always say, think like an FBI profiler. What demographic, age group, perfect example of that is when you watch Tom Selleck and Pat Boone, who are they marketing? When you watch their commercials, it's over 60.
Right.
Okay. He's going to talk you through it. They're going to try to build trust. They're going to try to get rid of your skepticism. They try to there's an absolute target market. They're talking and they're messaging a certain way.
Right.
The pace of their talking is slower. The camera moves in. He goes, you can trust me. I would never be selling you, a reverse mortgage.
Right. And nobody's, I mean, who's not going to trust Tom Selleck? I mean,
right. But if you don't have a 35-year-old on there talking real fast,
right.
It's a wrong market. So you got to be the reason why you want to know your target customers because the vehicle that you reach them is how you reach a 65-year-old. You're probably not going to get them through Instagram.
Right.
Okay. So you got to find the vehicle that's most likely to reach them. You got to find a message that's most likely to reach them.
Right.
You got to find a call to action that creates movement. And each age group moves different based on different things they hear. So you have to absolutely, I talk about it in the book, marketing is not optional and you're going to market, you might as well do it well.
Right. Yeah. Don't waste your time and your money.
Yeah. But if you think you're a word of mouth business, the overall thing I kind of beat down in the book is that there is no word of mouth business. Okay. Rolex, I don't know if you know it, they sell very expensive watches. Everybody loves them, but they still advertise like crazy.
Right. Yeah, Mercedes-Benz advertises. I mean,
like crazy. I was joking, but I don't know if you know, but Budweiser sells beer, and they're going to remind you about 8 times during the Super Bowl. These are rhetorical questions, but you still want to remind your target customer why they buy from you.
Right, that you exist.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's happened before, where it's like, wow, that company's still in business.
So good marketing. it's the biggest thing that small businesses lack. It's really their kiss of death.
Right. Right.
They don't know how to attract customers consistently.
Right. And the thing that you mentioned that is absolutely critical is, as you said, knowing where to reach them. You might think that Facebook is the greatest thing in the world, but if your target market is not there, then use Facebook in the evenings to catch up on your friends' kids. I mean, do your
Absolutely.
advertising elsewhere. And sometimes it's the old school stuff. I mean, it's the physical direct mail pieces.
I listen to me. Valpak makes me a fortune.
I
Why?
bet.
Because if I mail to 60,000 people, it's the law of math. And not only that, people move into the area. So you're constantly getting new move-ins.
Right.
I use what's called layered marketing. I don't trust any one thing. I use the radio for testimonials because people are trapped in their car and they listen to it. And a radio ad's 1 minute long. I own a digital marketing company. Well, those ads are very quick, 15 seconds, just pattern interrupts, something of that nature. We use Super Bowl ads. TV is visual, gives you credibility. I just said I use Valpak. We use postcards. I mean, I use 5 to 6 different things. I don't want my business to be dependent on any one form of advertising. I want to have multiple mediums by which I can attract, my target customer.
It used to be that they said, you had to see it 7 times before it soaked in. Now it's lots more than that. I don't know what the statistic is, but we do have to see it multiple times. But it might be the 15th time that you drive past that billboard, say, that you go, oh my gosh, that's who I need to call. Or it could be that you see a Facebook post and your best friend is saying, hey, we just had the greatest handyman in the world, and that comes back to word of mouth. But yeah, I mean, it really is, you have to be in multiple places. Now, again, it has to be the right multiple places. I do a lot of social media training, and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, oh my God, we don't have time to be on TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn and I tell them, no, pick one and go from there.
And that's too funny. When I built my platform, I got pitches to do everything, and we said no. I said we're going to pick one and be big on one, and it worked. And you can't be all things. Not only that, it's financially, it's not affordable.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of financially, picking your pricing for whatever it is that you're doing is, especially for an entrepreneur that's very new to this, is so hard, because one of the things that, and you probably see this, I see this all the time, is people underprice what they're doing.
Yeah,
especially because they're saying,
go-to thing.
I've never done this before, so why would people pay me $100 an hour to do it? Well,
I can tell you why. I can tell you how to do it.
They're paying for your knowledge, for your expertise, and hello, they don't need to know that you haven't been doing
That's
this.
What I was getting ready to tell. When I started the handyman company, number one is nobody needed to know I didn't know the difference between 2 screwdrivers. Okay. Nobody asked me that. It was information that was unnecessary. So if you can create a company that looks reputable from the beginning, your name, your fonts, your tagline,
a website.
You do. Of course, you do a website. Maybe you join a couple associations, even if it's just the Better Business Bureau or a couple little local trade, whatever you can get, some little seal of approval. You've just given yourself the right to charge more. Next, you look at your competition, find out what they're not doing, get their pricing, buy from your competition, the entire buying process. Buy from them, call them, try to get customer service, reach out to them online, see how long it takes them to respond. What you want to do is it's like a battle plan. You got to find where they're lacking, and that's where you want to build your company around. Right. Because if you can figure out that weakness, I always say, find the one promise that your competition is not delivering on. That if your target customer found out you did, they would chase you down for your business. Right. That one promise is what's going to make you rich. Once you figure that out, your pricing doesn't have to be the lowest. And if you think you need to be the lowest, I hate to qualify it, but you're probably going to fail. I've just never seen the lowest. To be the lowest price, you go, oh, well, Walmart's cheap. Yeah. When you have that many stores, you can start being cheap.
They make it up for it in quantity.
Exactly. The only way you can be the least expensive is to own the marketplace. Right. To have so much volume that your pricing, your buying capacity is so low, the pricing you're getting from from your suppliers is so incredible that you can do that. But other than that, that's a very hard, it's hard to win being the least expensive. You can't hire talented people. You have no cash reserves. You don't have enough money to do marketing. I would say figure out how you can be in the top 25% of pricing. Create a value proposition and an image that allows you to be in the top 25% from day one.
Right.
That's a much healthier position to be in a startup.
Right. Yeah. And again, people don't need to know that you're a startup. I always cringe when I go to a networking thing and, everybody goes around and gives their elevator pitch and you get the person who stands up and they're very nervous because they've not done it before. Okay. So you need to have practiced, but they get up and they say, I started my business in my spare bedroom 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
My immediate thought is, then you don't know what you're doing.
And I'll give you another example how to get around that. When I started the handyman company, what I did is because I didn't know anything and I had to create a strong value proposition and I wanted to charge good money, and we charged great money from the beginning, is I did none of our handyman had less than 15 years experience.
Right. So that's how you could say.
I built the credibility off just not hiring young people. So by just having that one line, no handyman has under 15 years experience. And then I came back with, I wouldn't send anyone to your home that wouldn't work in mine.
Right.
So that was a subliminal message that I'm putting a top tier person in your house that you can trust. Those two sentences eliminated anybody asking me how much experience I have.
Right.
Or even knowing or even caring who I am. So there's a lot of ways that you can word things to get credibility. You can take your cumulative staff. We have over 100 years experience doing such and such. There are so many creative ways to create credibility as a startup. You just got to be creative.
Well, and sometimes you do have to, as you said, be creative, frame it differently. I was working with a woman one time on her LinkedIn profile because she had lost her job. She had been a medical billing person with the same physician her entire career. And so she gives me her resume and it's like half a page long. And one of the things that we worked on was obviously how to expand that. And I said, okay, tell me your success rate on your invoicing, because the doctors are going to love that. And she said, well, it's 95%. And I said, okay, well, what's the normal? And she said 80. I went, excuse me.
Huge value proposition right there.
Yeah. And in her volunteer world, she had done lots of things. She helped start a charter school, all of these various things. And so we were able to put together a profile for her that was just, it knocked it out of the park. And, as you're, if you're starting out, obviously in a business, you can do things like that. Just because you didn't, you weren't the boss of it, it still doesn't mean you don't have 20 years of experience in whatever that industry is.
Absolutely.
All these various ththings.
There's a lot of ways it's a lot of ways to dress a pig up.
Right. And now we might not want to put lipstick on that pig.
Yeah,
but you never know. You might want to put lipstick on that pig.
Like everything I did, none of it was disingenuous.
Right. And you never ever want to lie.
Yeah, I'm not telling you to ever. There's never a reason to do that. It's just framing what you can brag about and not framing what is your weakness. I mean, it's pretty simple. That's a normal way you do business.
Right. And in your book, you also talk about things that are obviously things that we have to do. And that's the legal things of setting up your business properly. Talk to an attorney, talk to a CPA.
Just protect yourself.
Yeah.
There's just some smart things you need to do. Partnership agreements, if you're going to go into a partnership. Do you have trademarks, patents, copyrights, intellectual property? Do you need contracts with your clients? Do you need no compete agreements? Do you need employment agreement? You may not need any of these, but you definitely just the three things that I tell people at the very least. Become incorporated, because now you're at least taking yourself personally from being responsible.
Yeah, you've protected your own assets.
Exactly. So number one, do that. That's the most important thing. Number two is that if you have a partnership, get some type of partnership agreement. I just highly recommend some type of partnership agreement.
We don't do handshakes anymore, folks.
No. And number three is, if you're a new business, be careful regarding payroll. It's so easy to get the taxes screwed up where you have money in like escrow and it's taxes, and then you pay Peter with that money, they pay, you got to be careful. I just like using payroll companies. To me, they take care of everything at the end of the year. Everything's ready for your accountant. They're the ones taking the money out every week. The one advice I give give companies is use a payroll company. There are so many of them. For what little they charge you, it's such an easy way to not get into tax trouble.
Right. Well, and especially because taxes change, and you're not only dealing with federal, you're dealing with state. And depending on the type of business you are, if you hire consultants, things, I mean, you could be operating in multiple states and you just blew your brain up trying to figure out what to do when, you just pay to have that done. You pay to, I just paid, in fact, we got the notice earlier this week that the Business Power Hour is now trademarked. And that was one of those things that I had thought, I don't need to do that. Well, of course, I had somebody say, you can't use that. Well, that was, it really was a totally different business, all sorts of things. He couldn't, he really couldn't do a cease and desist. But I thought, I wouldn't want somebody who really could have a claim come back against my program. And, and so I researched it and I made the initial filing. It was like $75. And I thought, I'm a smart person, I can do this. And then I got the response back and I took one look at it and thought, no. I hired an attorney.
And I hire them, and they're so inexpensive online, but that's all they do. I have somebody in my, who just handles everything, who tells me when it needs to renew. It's like every 5 years. And and all of these various things. And you mentioned in the book, trading and bartering for things, so you might be a brand new business, and let's go back to the handyman thing. So, maybe you're setting things up, you barter with an attorney that who's going to set things up for you, and you're going to do some work. Now, again, get it in writing, get it clear, all these various things. Don't let that be your primary business model, but there are some trades that do make sense. And again, it's survival as a startup, and your services are valuable. The tendency is to undervalue it. I'm just saying to you, if you're going to do a barter, it's dollar for dollar.
Right.
Don't discount yours, because that attorney's not discounting theirs. The accountant's not discounting theirs. I've done plenty of bartering, during the startup phase, and just make sure it's a true dollar versus a dollar.
Right. I interviewed somebody on the program one time who has a bartering company. And it was very interesting because you would go in and you would say, here are the products and services that I have. And I would barter. And she said, she has people that barter for vacations. I mean, all sorts of things. But it is, again, it's very clearly spelled out, because there are some tax ramifications. Just because you didn't pay money for it doesn't mean that there wasn't value that was exchanged. And she's very successful at it. But I found that fascinating because it really was a totally different business model. But yeah, I mean, it was, she had legal stuff out the wazoo on that to make sure that people weren't being taken advantage of, because anytime you do a barter, it's real easy for somebody or donate, maybe you're donating to, say, a nonprofit. It's very easy for somebody to come back and say, well, can you do a little bit more? And it's just get it in writing, get it clear. I always tell people anything you do should be in writing, and depending on what it is, you might need a contract, but you also mentioned in the book, as part of this process, insurance. Every company, I have insurance on what I do. I have an umbrella policy. It's very, very simple, very easy to add to my homeowner's insurance. It just kind of covers, and people are like, you provide a service. Why on earth would you need, and I said, well, because you never know, something might still go wrong. And, and you need that clearly if you're doing something like a handyman service,
you
have
general
to have
liability.
insurance.
Do you have employees? You need workers' compensation and things of that. I mean, at the end of the day, you just need to protect yourself. It's just critical.
Right. And then I love the distinction that you make, that there are entrepreneurs and there are business owners. The entrepreneurs love starting up companies. And so then you could be an entrepreneur that becomes a business owner and you never do anything else again, or you may just keep being a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I just find that, some people have their entrepreneurial moment. And it might be 6 months in 1 year, and then they have that one business, and it's great. It
Right.
employs a few people. They're happy. I just say they had an entrepreneurial moment, which birthed a business, which is okay with that.
Right.
A definition of an entrepreneur to me is like when you watch Shark Tank, those guys are entrepreneurs. They're always they want. They're addicts. We're addicts about starting new ventures and look at Amazon is an entrepreneurial company. Microsoft is an entrepreneurial company. I think they acquire on average of 28 companies a year, 28 acquisitions a year. It's some crazy number, but there's just a difference between the two, I think.
Right. And, and the world needs all of it.
There's nothing wrong with a solopreneur. There's nothing wrong with a side hustle. If that works for you, you just need to do what fits, what fits you.
Right. And, and as we've been saying, you need to take the proper steps because you do want it to be successful. I mean, the worst thing would be, and let's be honest, things fail, things happen. Look how many businesses started earlier this year. And then the pandemic hit. They probably for the vast majority, they may have had very good business plans, business models, concept, all those, but
none of it mattered.
You weren't going to function. And so, okay, the thing might be that you go and you work for somebody else for a while and then you try again. If it was a good idea.
The second one typically has much greater statistics. I've read that before. It's some crazy statistic, but I need to go find it again. But the second one typically does well.
Right. We learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Sean, we have been talking for an hour and we didn't even get through the whole list of 8 things, which just means that people need to read your book, which is again the 8. Right. And it's on your website. So tell us how you find it.
Yeah, I was going to say I did a 1-hour pitch to give you a book for free. Yay. If you go to SeanCastrina.com, and I'm sure she'll have it in the show notes and something of that nature, but just my name, Castrina, SeanCastrina.com. You can get the book for free, The 8 Unbreakable Rules for Business Startup Success. It will help you so much. So just again, go to my personal site. And if you like the way I talk and teach, and you kind of got a little taste of that, short, quick, to the point, the 10-minute entrepreneur podcast, it'll feed your addiction. If you love podcasts and specifically quick doses of information, I'm 10 minutes.
Right. And it's right there. There's a link. You've also got blog posts. You've got your other books, all these various things. So again, that's SeanCastrina.com. So very easy to find. This really has been great. And I think we need to follow up in maybe a year to see, when the world has hopefully calmed down, the election will be done. Let's hope it actually legally it will be. For anybody who thinks it's dragging on, no, it will be done. The pain will be over. We'll have lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth for other things. Hopefully, the pandemic will have done whatever the pandemic is going to do, and the next thing will have come along. But it'll be interesting to talk to you again to say, okay, in this new world, because I think the pandemic really is going to make us function differently.
Yeah, I think business will be done differently.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to talk to you again. Until then, do you have any final words of wisdom for everyone?
Hey, I just say, keep learning. Information is so available to you, but take action on something. That's the only thing. I think we almost become information hounds. Right. We consume information. We take action on nothing. So just whatever you're listening to, just do something with it.
Right. Right. And it won't be perfect. It might not even work.
It's never perfect. And there's never a perfect time to start doing it.
Yeah. But it's not going to do anything if you don't start.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having a great discussion with Sean Castrina. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.